I built over 2,000 sales funnels across 48 different industries, and these are the 3 funnels that have generated me almost $30 million. In this video, I'm going to break down each funnel in depth, show you what worked and what didn't, and help you decide which funnel you should be using or optimizing for your business. We'll start with the video sales letter funnel. This is what I like to call Old Faithful. Video sales letter funnels are one of the most common types of funnels that you'll see online right now because, quite frankly, they work so well. We've worked with thousands of clients and we will almost always start with a video sales letter funnel. Let me show you what it looks like when we break it down. So you have what's known as an opt-in page first. This is typically where you're driving traffic to, whether it's from ads or organic or some other source. And this is where you're capturing name, email, phone number. Then you send them to the video sales letter page itself. That's where you're hosting the actual video sales letter, which is typically anywhere from a 3-minute to a 30-minute video of you explaining your services, what makes you different, your unique mechanisms, et cetera, et cetera. And then you invite them to book a call to speak with you. If they click the button below that, they go to an apply/booking page. Depending how some people have set it up, it might be an application page first and then a booking page, or my recommendation is typically just having your application questions on your booking widget. And then you're going to have a thank you page, which you should use strategically to prime people for that sales call to increase show rates and to increase close rates. Now, at what revenue levels should you be using a video sales letter funnel? Well, I would say if you're starting at 0, it is absolutely the best funnel to use to get started because it's very little friction and it requires very little work to get up and running. And I have seen people running a video sales letter funnel all the way up to $10 million a month. So it has a lot of scale built inside of it. Now, there are a few things that you should know on the downsides of the video sales letter funnel, which is why you might not want to run it that high. But I typically see people running it from anywhere from $0 all the way up to about $300,000 a month, where you start to see some cracks in the structure. The key elements that every video sales letter needs to have is what's known as a unique mechanism. You see, the video sales letter's biggest pro, the fact that you can get it up and running so quickly, is also one of its biggest cons, meaning that anybody can create a video sales letter and get it up and running really quickly, which is why you see a lot of Me Too things going on. You'll see one person create a video sales letter for a specific offer, and then if it's going very well, meaning you see it everywhere, they're running a lot of ads, it's on all of their contents, then what happens is other people will literally rip that entire video sales letter word for word. And so the problem with that is now whenever you're dealing with an end consumer or the potential prospects, they're seeing everybody as almost the exact same thing. And so you want to make sure you have some kind of unique mechanism. Now, a unique mechanism is exactly what it sounds like. It is what is unique about the way that you're doing your service compared to everybody else. And depending on how saturated your market is, your unique mechanism may be really, really unique, or if you don't have a lot of competitors in your space, you're very early on in the offer, then it might not have to be as unique. So let me give you an example. We have something in our company called the self-sustaining funnel. And it's essentially what I've coined our entire holistic marketing system that covers YouTube videos, paid ads, our video sales letter funnel, appointment setters, email sequences, SMS, how I'm able to run all of this to generate millions of dollars a year with a one-person marketing team. So instead of having a video sales letter and say, hey, we can help you with YouTube videos and ads and funnels, which is what everybody else is saying, I can say, hey, we can help you create a self-sustaining funnel. And because I coined that term, nobody else is using it. And now I am unique compared to everybody else. Now, on the flip side, let me walk you through one of my portfolio companies, which is actually my fiance's matchmaking company called Founders and Love. On that, we were able to throw up a video sales letter and just say, we do a highly curated process for successful founders finding the woman of their dreams for them. Now, we're able to throw that up there and not have to use any fancy terms or really differentiate ourselves that much in the marketplace because, quite frankly, there isn't really a marketplace out there. And so because of that, this business is doing very well very early on. So you can see that it might be easier if you're just starting a business to try to find a marketplace that doesn't have as much competition so you don't have to get as creative with it. But if you are already in a business or an industry where there is a lot of competition, then spend some time time and energy to find out what your unique mechanism is so you don't sound like everybody else and you can use a video sales letter funnel to scale. So let's walk through some of the numbers of what you can expect on a high converting video sales letter funnel. So from the opt-in page to the video sales letter page, meaning your lead conversion rate, how many people that land on that first page that actually give you their information, you should be looking at roughly 15% to 40%, depending on a bunch of factors like the quality of your traffic and how unique the messaging is on the headline. And so when we're typically looking at those numbers, we're looking at anywhere from a $5 to a $40 cost per lead. Now, some of you might be watching this and think, oh my God, $40 cost per lead, that's insane. But if you're spending ads to get really high quality traffic to your funnel and you have the right sequences set up after somebody opts in, so not just having people book on their own from the video sales letter, but also having appointment setters and email sequences and SMS blasts, et cetera, you should be willing to pay $40 for a lead if you have a high enough dollar per lead. I'm not going to go too deep inside of what dollar per lead is, but just to give you some rough numbers, our rough dollar per lead is about $110, meaning that every month, the amount of cash that we make, if I divide that by the number of new leads that we generated, it's about $110. So I can spend up to $40 for a lead because I know ultimately after everything is said and done, I'm going to make almost 3x that money from the leads that I've generated. From the video sales letter page to the application and booking page, you're typically going to be looking at roughly 30%. Once again, those numbers can be higher or lower depending on so many different things, but those are the people that click play on the video sales letter and watch enough of it that it convinces them to click the button down below and potentially go and book a call to speak with you. If that number, 30%, is too low, then an issue that you might be having is your video sales letter is not engaging enough, it's not persuasive enough for the people that are landing on that page to then go to the next page. Once people land on your application and booking page, you should be looking at roughly 40% of those people converting into booked calls and landing on your thank you page. That number is going to vary depending heavily on what your questions look like on your application and booking page. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when I show you my application and booking page, but really quickly, you don't just want to ask for people's name, email, and phone number. That's almost no friction, and you get a lot of booked calls, but a lot of them are going to be unqualified. So you want to add in a couple of additional questions that can filter out unqualified people or people that are not ready to buy. So this means altogether, from when someone lands on your opt-in page to when they are a booked call on your calendar, you're typically looking at a 3% conversion rate. And that means that if you have, let's say, a $5 cost per click to get someone to your opt-in page, then you're going to end up with a roughly $166 cost per booked call. And if you're selling a high ticket service through this funnel, that number is right in the sweet spot of what we're looking at getting so that you can be as profitable as possible. So now let me break down the video sales letter funnel that we've used that has generated over $10 million in sales. So this is that first page that I talked about. This is the opt-in page. Now, the first thing that you might notice is how incredibly simple it is. And that's one of the biggest tips I can give you when you're creating an opt-in page. What I have found is almost always the less you have on the page, the higher the conversion rate is to that video sales letter page, which is the next page in the funnel. Now, there's one key element here. You don't want 100% of the traffic that lands on this page to go to the video sales letter page. You want to have some friction in your funnel. And let me just really quickly talk about the friction inside of your funnel. A lot of people think, hey, I want everybody that's clicking on my page to end up booking a call and speaking with my sales team. But the problem with that is that everybody is not qualified, especially if you're using marketing that's net marketing, meaning that you are casting a very wide net on a group of people. This is going to be paid advertising, or this is also going to be organic content, because you might put up an ad and specifically target, let's say, coaches and consultants, but you could get people that are just starting out as coaches and consultants. You could be getting out consultants that are in Fortune 500 companies that maybe are not your target market. And so we want to try as hard as possible to deter those people from continuing down that funnel, so we're not wasting additional resources or getting false positives on our data. For example, if I was, let's say, targeting coaches and consultants, and let's say that I was getting a bunch of beginner people that were opting into my funnel, well, then I might get all these people on my calendar, and I'm thinking, great, I have a 6% video sales letter conversion rates. And Ravi said I should have a 3%. I'm doing 2 times as good as I need to. Or you might have all of your appointment setters calling all these leads, and the vast majority of them are unqualified. So you might want to put something at the top that says this is only for coaches and consultants doing $10,000 a month. And so sure, that's going to be a very small percentage of the total number of coaches and consultants out there. But if it means only those people are clicking on the next page, well, you're going to be getting high quality traffic. You're going to be training your Facebook pixel better. You're going to be having your setters reach out to more quality people versus just more people in general. And you'll get a better look at what the true conversion rate is of your funnel, which also lets you know where the true bottleneck is of your funnel. For example, on the opt-in page of our video sales letter, you can see that it says for coaches, consultants, agencies, and service-based businesses looking to build a personal brand that generates 5 to 10 qualified sales calls a day. I've tested literally thousands of headlines, but that one's really intentional because I'm calling out our avatar, which is coaches, consultants, agencies, and service-based businesses. And another thing that I added in there is looking to build a personal brand that generates 5 to 10 qualified sales calls a day. Because even if we were getting coaches, consultants, agencies, and service-based businesses, one of the things that we were realizing very early on is we were getting people into our funnel that wanted 5 to 10 sales calls a day, but they didn't want to be the face of the brand. They didn't want to create any content, and they were just hoping that they could run ads like you could 5 years ago and get a packed calendar. And that's just no longer the case. You have to have some sort of personal brand in order to separate yourself in today's saturated market, especially because we're currently in a trust recession. So we don't even want to try to get on the phone with people who need to be convinced that they need a personal brand. We want people who either already have a personal brand and need to optimize it, or who are willing and ready to create a personal brand because they know that it's necessary in order to scale their business. Right below the pre-headline where I am calling out my avatar, we obviously have the primary headline, which is typically where you're combining some kind of pain or desire to get somebody to opt into your funnel. Here I say, want us to help you install a simple, streamlined content marketing system so you can raise your prices, close more dream clients, increase profits, and become an industry leader. These are all keywords that I pulled from sales calls, applications, onboarding form notes, etc., etc. So these are the exact words that I know that my avatar wants. Now, a quick note on headlines. There are really 2 types of headlines. There's a direct headline and an indirect headline. And the easiest way to think about it is pretty much how direct you're being with letting the person know that they might have to work with you to get this end result. For example, want us to help you install a simple, streamlined content marketing system. That's what's known as a direct headline. I'm letting this person know, hey, only opt in here if you're wanting to know how we can help you. That's really good to get really high quality traffic of people that are looking to work with you. On the reverse side, an indirect headline is where you're kind of disguising the ask to work with you as some sort of free training or some webinar. So an example here, I could say something like a free case study reveals how we generate over $1 million a month using this one simple system. So I'm not exactly saying, hey, this is what it's like to work with me. I'm saying, hey, you want to come in and learn this special thing? And then through that video, I'm going to convince the person that in order to get this special thing, you have to work with me. And then of course you have your traditional social proof here, like 2,000 plus businesses served. I have some famous people that are either clients or friends of mine that we've done work together. And I also have some social proof up top. These are all little additional things that I can use to help increase conversion rate and separate me from the thousands of opt-in pages that my prospects have landed on before. The next step in our video sales letter funnel is going to be the actual video sales letter page itself. This one, as you can see, is very similar to the opt-in page. If there's one thing I can tell you about all the funnels I'm going to walk through today, you want to make sure that you have consistency. You might think because somebody just opted into your funnel that they trust you enough and then they're going to go through the rest of your funnel. But in reality, they're either consciously or subconsciously looking for any excuse to leave your sales funnel. So one main excuse is if they see something that they're not expecting. For example, they think that there's going to be a video showing them what it's like to build a content marketing system, and they opt in, and at the headline I say something like, learn how we make over whatever $10 million in this marketing system. Well, then even though it's similar, there's still enough of a disconnect there. Well, somebody might actually hop off of that sales funnel. So almost always I want to have something that's relatively as close as possible to whatever it says on the opt-in page, so that way they're not leaving the funnel just because they're a little bit scared or confused. Now, a lot of these elements are very similar to the opt-in page, so I'm not going to cover them, like the social proof elements that I was talking about before. Also, I have on this one our trust pilot, because I can show people that a third-party platform is verified, that we have over 100 reviews and 4.8 plus stars. And so the only different things on this page is going to be mainly this video sales letter. And this one, as you can see here, is about 7.5 minutes long. Like I told you, it can vary anywhere from 3 minutes, I've had this video sales letter, all the way up to 30 to 40 minutes. It depends greatly on your market, how saturated everything is, how unique your mechanism is, how well or eloquently that you can speak, if you can paint a story, how much you have to explain and bridge awareness gaps, etc., etc. I'm not going to get into this video. I have another video on my channel on the exact video sales letter formula that we use for our clients. But the idea here is you just want to put the main thing you want them to do, which is watch this video front and center for them to click on and watch. And then underneath it, I have a little word that says tap play and watch the full video above. Anytime you can give clear instructions, I know it seems so obvious because it's obvious to you. But remember, some of these people may have never been through a sales funnel before, or they're looking for any reason to get out, and confusion is a big reason that people leave. And so you want to give them clear instructions every single step of the way. And then in this video sales letter, typically, identifying the avatar again, I'm digging deep into pain, I'm casting desires, I'm showing the unique mechanism of what I do that's different than anybody else, I'm showing social proof, and then at the end, I'm going to make them a call to action to come book a call to speak with us. And then below that, I have our actual button that they're going to click in order to go to the booking page. So you can see it says ready for consistent 100K plus months, because that's one of the main things my ideal avatar is looking for, to hit that first $100,000 plus month. And then right underneath that, it says schedule a demo call on the actual button itself. So this is all very direct marketing. I'm only wanting to speak with people that are potentially ready to work with us. And when we do that, we do get less bookings than if I'm trying to, disguise it as a free consultation call, et cetera, et cetera. But when we do get bookings, we're able to close sometimes above 50%, because these people have so much intention because of the way that we've set up this video sales letter funnel. The next step in our funnel is going to be the booking and application page. This one's very simple. It just says book your demo below, and then I give a little bit of social proof like I've had on the other page. I used to have a bunch of fancy stuff on this page, including hundreds of testimonials and case studies. We used to have different headlines, but what I found is that this page is probably going to be one of the most used pages in your entire funnel. And because of that, I want to try to make it universally acceptable, meaning that if somebody that I meet out, let's say at some kind of mastermind or networking event, if they saw me speak and they're like, hey, I want to work with you guys, I might just text them a direct link to our booking page instead of having them go through the entire opt-in and video sales letter process. So I can just say, hey, you can just book your demo using this link, and I'll text them the link. And of course, they're going to land on a page that says book your demo down below. Or they could come from the opt-in page and the video sales letter page. They could come from an email that we blasted out to everybody. So I like to make it universally acceptable for all the different funnels I have without confusing anybody. And that's why we keep it very, very simple. Now, there are two key elements you need to make sure you get right on this page. The first one is something called a double scroll. And this may seem so silly, but it's hilarious how many clients' funnels, whenever they first start working with us and they're saying, oh, I'm spending all this money on ads, but we're not getting booked calls. And I go in and I audit their funnel as part of the onboarding process. And I realize that on mobile, because they've embedded a booking widget, there's actually a double scroll, meaning that because you're inside of a booking widget on a sales funnel page, you actually can't scroll enough down to click schedule the appointment. And I only bringing this up here, it seems so funny for me to mention it, but it literally happens so many times for even some of the most advanced marketers that I've met. And so always make sure that you're secret shopping your own funnels, and you can go through in multiple devices, on iPads, on iPhones, on desktop computers, et cetera, et cetera. And a double scroll happens when you're trying to move the actual embedded, like this is Calendly, up and down, and you're trying to get to the bottom where you can schedule the actual appointment. But the container that the sales funnel page, like the editor itself, has it in is too short, and thus people can't book a call. And instead of telling you and warning you, these people just hop off the page and you think your funnel's broken. And the second thing we want here is we want some friction, okay? I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we want to ask one or two questions in addition to the basic questions like name, email, phone number that lets us dissuade the people that aren't our ideal avatar and attract the people that are our our ideal avatar. So a few great examples is for us, we ask what revenue level people are at because we have different programs and different offerings depending on what revenue level people are at. We also ask them to explain their business to us in a couple of words because if they are an e-commerce business or I don't know, they do flooring in some local town, we're probably not going to work with them. Another really great example of a question that you can ask is what I like to call the readiness question. And this is essentially where you can gauge how ready somebody is to work with you when they're booking the call. And this is really critical because a lot of my clients, they deal with really high call volume, but very low show up rates and very low close rates. And so they have this huge sales team and this huge appointment setting team to handle all this call volume, but they're having a 10 to 15% close rates and a really high no-show rates. And so they have a lot of inefficiencies in the funnel. And if you've ever managed multiple salespeople, then you know that having 5, 6, 7, 8 salespeople to make the same amount of money that 2 or 3 really dialed in salespeople can make, it's a total nightmare. And I've done it myself. And so we want to add really strategic friction, such as on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready are you to see this transformation in your life? How ready are you to work with me potentially, right? And so by adding that in there, anybody that's below a 7, you can just automatically cancel off the calendar, or you can have an appointment setter go out and triage that, or a sales coordinator, and figure out, are they really cold? Like, are they really a 2, 3, or 4? Or do they just say that because they were a little hesitating on the application question? The final note I'll say on the booking page is you want to try to keep it maximum 4 days out in the future for the actual booking availability. We found that anything greater than 4 days, your show rate goes in the toilet. So I've had a client one time where we set up her funnel for her and we launched ads, and she was booked 14 days out into the future. It was working so well. She was getting like $20 booked calls. And so she was all excited about it, but I was telling her to turn off the ads because I knew that come the 10th to 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th day, she's going to have almost nobody show up because nobody's even remembering the appointment that they booked 10 to 14 days ago. And even with the right email sequences or text message sequences, you're going to probably have 50% of the show up rate that you could have if you have about a 4-day maximum availability. So for that client, we turned off the ads, we hired her a couple of salespeople, and then we were able to turn back on the ads and ramp up those sales calendars very, very quickly. The final page in your video sales letter funnel is going to be that thank you page that I talked about before. A lot of people treat their thank you pages like an afterthought, meaning they just say, oh, let me just throw something on there and, it doesn't really matter. Let's focus on getting more booked calls. But I found that this is probably one of the most important pages on your funnel because it's the last impression that that person is getting of you and your brand and your service before they get on the sales call. Because you don't know if they're going to answer the phone if you're calling them beforehand. You don't know if they're going to read the emails or text messages you're sending them before the sales call. You don't know if they're going to show up to the sales call. So it's the last chance that you can to really, really persuade this person to take this seriously, show up, and potentially work with you. So here's a few things that I recommend everybody have on their thank you pages. First of all, you want to acknowledge the thing that they just did. Congrats, your call has been booked. I've had a lot of clients come in and have a really low show up rates. And then whenever I go through their funnel, their thank you page was such an afterthought that people didn't even know if their call was actually confirmed in the first place. So because they didn't think it was confirmed, they just didn't show up to the actual sales call. So you want to always acknowledge your call is booked, your spot is secured. Then for us, remember what I talked about in the video sales letter page, we want to give instructions. So I say important, complete these 2 steps now. And if you don't, we'll be forced to cancel your call and give your slot to someone else. So I'm telling them they have to complete these 2 steps now. And I bring in a negative consequence if they don't do that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should have this negative consequence, hey, we might cancel your call, because I have seen it turn off certain audience members or certain prospects if you send them through the funnel, especially very, very cold people. But for me, once again, I'm optimizing not for the highest volume as possible. I want the highest efficiency as possible. And that's why our mission on our company is to help you build a business that serves you instead of you serving it. And I do the same thing myself. I want every one of my salespeople to be bringing home $300,000 a month in cash. I don't want to have an individual salesperson bringing $100,000 a month in cash because that's a lose-lose situation for everybody. Step number 1 is going to be confirm your call. I did an analysis over 16,000 sales calls, and I found that when somebody did confirm their call by responding back yes to either a text or an email, we had a 96% show up rate for those people. And when they didn't confirm their call, we had a 50% show up rate. So that let me know that I need to try to persuade as many people to say yes and respond back after they book a call to confirm that appointment as possible so I can maximize the efficiency of my sales calendar. But it also let me know that if they don't say yes, it doesn't mean that they're not going to show up. It's a 50-50 shot. So I'm not going to cancel that person off the calendar. We just might have our sales coordinator reach out and try to coordinate with that person. And even if they don't ever respond back, we'll still leave them on the calendar. We'll just probably mark them as free, meaning somebody else can take that slot. And if they do show up, we might have our sales coordinator, our sales director, or an appointment setter take that call instead and have our salesperson go for the people that actually did confirm. And the second step says learn how our process works. And this is just going to be a short video going a little bit more in depth about what we do, how we help people with some case studies and social proof. And a big element that you should notice here is that I don't have 15 steps. I don't have 45 case studies and testimonials, because what I found is that it's almost information overload. You have this decision fatigue where even if I had these 2 steps, but I had 20 things underneath it, the people are just going to bounce off the page and not do anything that you want them to do. Or if I said, watch this video and this video and this video and this video, same thing's going to happen. They're not really going to consume any of that content because they feel like there's too many things going on. So you really want to ask as little of your prospects as possible before they get on that sales call, because I know it feels like, you're really doing them the favor by walking them through their business or whatever else you're going to do with them and help them out. But in reality, they're kind of doing you the favor. You need to be respectful of their time. And if you give them too much stuff, they're just going to ignore it all. Let's talk about the second sales funnel, which is going to be a low ticket sales funnel. Let me first walk through what it looks like at a high level. Then I'm going to show you some specific things you need to know about before you launch a low ticket funnel. And finally, I'm going to go through the actual low ticket funnel that we've used that has made us millions of dollars in sales. So there are a few ways to structure a low ticket funnel, but one of the most common and one of the most successful ones for us is going to be to drive traffic directly to a sales page. That's going to be a very long form sales page where you're going to put a lot of sales copy on there in order to sell your, let's say, $7 to $97 products. Now, I'm not going to get really in depth in this video about how do you know the pricing of the product and how do you even know what products you create in order to make sure you don't cannibalize your high ticket products or services. But the important thing here is that whatever you're selling, whatever you're doing here, let's say it's going to be $7, you want the value of what you're selling and the amount of energy that you're using to sell that product to be 10 to 100 times that amount. So you need to imagine that you're selling something for $700 to this total stranger, not just $7, because that's how much energy is required to get somebody to pull out their credit card and actually type it in on a sales funnel that they may have just found out of 2 seconds ago. And so a lot of people I see, because they're charging $1, $5, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, they think, oh, it's just $50, then I don't have to put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. But I can tell you that of all the funnels out there, the low ticket funnel is probably the one that requires the most amount of energy or effort in order to get it to work. Okay. And there's a lot of pros and cons I'll talk a little bit about later. But the main thing here is don't underestimate the amount of sales copy, the amount of research, the length of the video sales that are on the sales page itself, the amount of social proof and testimonials you need to sell something for $7. If people like what they see on your sales page, they'll typically enter in their name, email, and phone number or some combination of that, and they're going to go over to the checkout page. A good sales page conversion rate to get them to the checkout page is typically around 20 to 30%, meaning that if you have 100 people land on your sales page, you should have about 20 people land on your checkout page. And on your checkout page, you're kind of modeling some of the same stuff that you talked about on your sales page, but it's obviously going to be way much more of a summary. It's way more condensed, and you actually have the checkout element where people can put in their, credit card information, shipping address in order to purchase that product. Now, in a really great low ticket funnel, you're typically going to have something called a order bump. And this is going to be 1 or 2 things that you're putting on the checkout page that somebody can buy in addition to the main thing you sold them on that first page. I'm going to walk through my low ticket funnel here in a moment, but just to give you an example in real life, this is like when you're checking out at your local grocery store and they have all of those candies or sweets or whatever at the checkout counter, and they're always like whatever, $1 or $3 or $7. And so it's an easy impulse buy for you just to throw it on the belt and buy it right then and there. That's kind of like an order bump. They're trying to get you to spend just a little bit more money for $2 or $3 more, which is nothing to you. But for every single person that comes in there, if they pay $2 or $3 more, that company could make, depending on the traffic, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, or even billions more every single year from that additional $2 or $3 charge. A good checkout page should convert somewhere around 30%. Once again, these numbers you have to take with a grain of salt because it varies greatly, the product, the service, and also how warm or cold the traffic is. But let's just say 30% roughly is what your checkout page should convert at from people that actually land on the page that then purchase your products. The order bump conversions are going to vary based on how many that you have and what price points they are. But I almost always recommend, no matter what price point the core product is, you have a $97 order bump. And we've seen that convert as high as 30%, which means that I am adding roughly $30 more to my average order value every single time somebody purchases, let's say, a $7 thing from me because of that order bump. And let's talk really quickly about average order value, because that's probably the thing that will make or break your low ticket sales funnel more than anything else. And your average order value is essentially how much money do you make on average for every single time somebody purchases something from you. So if you're selling something for $7, well, we don't want to just get $7 from that person. We want to try to extract out as much money as we can from that person as possible, while obviously still providing value. So for me, I've had some $7 sales funnels, $7 products have $60 to $80 average order values, which means that if I didn't add these additional elements I'm going to walk through in a little bit, like the order bumps, the OTOs, and the DOTOs, then I would be getting literally 1/10 of the amount of money that I could per person. And another thing you understand is that if your average, let's say, cost per click on Facebook ads is $6, well, based on the sales page conversion rate and the checkout page conversion rate, you're typically looking at, let's say, a 3% to a 6% overall conversion rates of people that land on that actual sales page. So there's no way that at a $7 product that you could be profitable running ads to that low ticket funnel. So all you're trying to do is try to pull out as much cash as possible, not only so that you can make as much money as possible, but also that if you're really trying to scale this with paid ads, which is what most people will do with a low ticket funnel, because there's a lot of strengths that I'll talk about in a moment here, you want to try to recoup as much of that ad spend upfront as possible. So instead of being done with the order after somebody reaches the checkout page, you have what's known as one-time offers and downsell one-time offers that you're going to take them through as a series of pages to try to get as much money as possible. So for example, let's say that I am selling a t-shirt, and then my order bump might be something like, hey, do you want to get a 3-pack of these t-shirts? Well, then my one-time offer might be like, hey, would you like to get this pair of pants? And if they say, no, I don't want to get that pair of pants, I might say, oh, well, what about this pair of shorts? It's cheaper than this pants. And they say, yeah, okay, I'll take the shorts. Then I might say, great. Have you thought about getting a iron or our special steamer for these shorts and pants? Or have you thought about getting a belt? So I'm kind of giving them these complementary things that they would probably need if they're buying the previous ones. If they bought, let's say, a shirt from me, and then my order bump was 3 shirts, I don't want my one-time offer to be 6 shirts, right? Because it's like, I already just bought 3 shirts from you, or maybe 1 shirt. Like, I don't need that many shirts. I'm just trying to figure out you for the first time. So there's a little bit of a science to creating your one-time offers and your downsells in order to get as much money as possible. And that's why low-ticket funnels are one of the hardest funnels to get down, because you have to be able to get the perfect low-ticket products that attracts your ideal people and has enough value that there's a 10x or 100x return on that $7 charge that they're doing. But you also don't want to cannibalize your high-ticket offers as well. And then also you have all these additional products that you have to sell, like the first OTO, the order bump, the second OTO, the downsell OTO. So this is really definitely a more advanced funnel for people. But I know a lot of people watching this channel are advanced, and I told you I'd walk you through some of the funnels that have made us millions of dollars. This funnel, this type of funnel, low ticket funnels, have made me well over $8 million. So it works very, very well. But you have to understand, there are a lot of moving parts inside of it. And I think a lot of people hear about the sexiness of low ticket products and low ticket funnels, and then they go, oh, I can make some money while I'm selling them on my high ticket stuff. And so they go out and do it, not realizing the amount of true time, energy, and efforts required to make this whole thing work. And then finally, after you take them through all of your upsells and downsells, which could convert at 20% and 10% and 5%, 5%, 3%, right? Every single step, every page you give them is going to convert lower and lower because you've already asked so many of these people. Then you're going to end up on the actual thank you page. And this is typically where you're going to do one of two things. You're going to typically give them access to the low ticket product that they got. So that's the most important thing, or tell them where to get access, because remember, that's what they came here for, and they still think that this might be a scam. And the second thing that you want to do, if you're trying to sell them or ascend them into a high ticket product or service, is you want to have some kind of implementation call or onboarding call where you can get them on an actual call. Now, we're disguising this as an onboarding call or an implementation call because you don't want to say, okay, great, thanks for buying this low ticket product. Now get on a call with me to talk about how you can buy my high ticket products. That's not going to happen. But if you might say, hey, a lot of people struggle with implementing this on their own. If you want to, we include a free implementation call where you can hop on a call and we can show you what it's like. Well, then you're going to get a bunch of bookings from that. And then you transition people from that implementation call to a sales call to then buy your high ticket products or services. So really, really good implementation call bookings. You can be looking at as much as 60% of people that purchase the low ticket products will book their implementation call. And then you could see anywhere from 30 or 50% of those people booking a sales call. And then of course, whatever your close rate is from sales call into high ticket paying clients. So before I walk through one of our low ticket funnels, let's talk about who should implement a low ticket product. So the first and foremost is if I had to get like a revenue range, I would say people that are at least at 150K plus a month. And that's because at that level, you have a proven product, you have a proven offer, you probably have a good sales team, you probably have an appointment setting team in place, and you probably have some help with marketing or content or something like that, because you need all that to get this to work. And at 150K a month, you also have very likely some competitors starting to spring up. So you start to have other people that are copying your video sales, they're doing the exact same thing as you're doing, and you need to start to separate yourself from the marketplace. And finally, at 150K a month, you're probably spending, let's say, 20 to 30K a month in ads, which is really nothing on the grand scheme of things, but you might start to see your return on ad spend go lower and lower as you go through a colder and colder audience. Because remember, if you go to a total stranger and let's say you're running ads to them and you say, hey, learn about how I can build you this marketing system. Well, unless you're saying, there's a 100% money back guarantee, we do everything for you, we'll give you $1,000 if nothing works out, unless you pretty much bend over backwards to get that person to book a call, they don't trust you enough. And so the low ticket funnel allows that nice first step where all they're committing to is essentially $7, where they can get to know you a little bit better and then hopefully book a call with you and become a high ticket client. The main thing you want to have down before you even attempt a low ticket funnel is you want to understand your product suite. And this is something that I will sit down and do with my clients. I have kind of a system and a formula around creating the perfect product suite, but don't just go out there and create a random low ticket product and just throw a bunch of order bumps and upsells and downsells, because you have to understand that even though it's just $7 to you and you're selling something for $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, and so in your mind it's like, oh, they shouldn't really put too much weight on it because it's just $7. You have to understand that very similar to your free content, people are thinking that if this is what I'm getting for paying $7, then I'm just going to get more of this when I pay $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000. So if you have a really crappy low ticket products, then they're going to think that the rest of your products and services are really crappy. And if you give everything away on the $7 products, then there's going to be no reason for them to ascend and pay more money for your $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 high ticket service. Let's now go through one of our successful low ticket sales funnels. So this is for a product we have called the YouTube lead machine. So you can see it's very similar to our video sales letter funnel, but a few key differences. First and foremost, you should probably notice there's just a lot more going on here. Like I said, this is just a small screenshot, but this entire page, you could scroll and scroll and scroll for a very, very long time, because once again, even though this product is anywhere from $17 to $27, because we tested a bunch of different price points, I'm selling it like it's $270 or even $2,000 to try to convince a stranger to give me their credit card information. So social proof, you can see that we have up here, headline here as well. This is a sub headline where I do what I call the antithesis, which is like, hey, you can get this thing thing that you want without these things that you absolutely hate. Video sales that are pretty clear here, but you can see this one's only 3 minutes and 30 seconds because the majority of the selling is done through the actual sales copy itself. Product images, I have it say, it's only $17 today. You get it for $80 off. I ask for people's email right here, a little money back guarantee thing below, and then it says, give me an instant access on the button itself. So a few really core elements of any kind of low ticket funnel, or really any funnel in general: pre-headlines, headlines, post-headlines, social proof, video sales letter, money back guarantees, input fields for emails, product images, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not gonna go too deep here, but I wanted to show you a successful one that we've had that works very well. And we've tested legitimately hundreds of variations of where we're placing things, how long the video sales letter is, et cetera, et cetera. And this has worked incredibly well for us. From the sales page, they go directly to the checkout page, which looks like this here. This is much more concise, much more cleaned up. Everything that I talked about in the sales page is summarized in this little kind of summary sidebar here, where I say, here's everything that you get with a YouTube lead machine today: instant access, bonus number 1, bonus number 2, bonus number 3, boom, boom, boom. So a lot of people, what they will do is they will land on this sales page here. They might read 3 or 4 minutes worth of content on there, and they're like, okay, this looks good enough to me. And they're just going to go straight to the checkout page without reading every single word on there. So I want to kind of remind them and summarize them of all the value they're going to get in that sidebar. And then, of course, we have the actual checkout element here: name, email, phone number. You have the actual products, the card number, and then the order bumps below that. One key thing, oh my gosh, this is so funny because this is another big mistake I see a lot of people make with their low ticket funnels, is if you were selling a digital product, do not ask for their shipping information. The thing you understand is that for every single field where you are asking for a piece of information from somebody, it's a lower and lower conversion rate on that page. So if you're asking people for their home address, their city, their state, their zip code, when you're sending them a digital product, not only does it not make sense, but you're going to have a way lower conversion rate than you would otherwise. So make sure if you're selling digital products that you turn that element off on your sales funnel. And like I said at the bottom here, we have 2 different order bumps. One of them says, yes, I want to get 10 times more leads from my videos. And the other one says, yes, I want all my content written for me. One's for $97, one's for $67. So it's very easy just to click one of those anywhere on that big yellow box and add that to your cart, increasing our average order value, making more per customer than I'm getting through this funnel. Remember, once they check out, we're not taking them to our order confirmation page yet. We're doing those upsells and downsells in order to get them through the funnel and try to extract as much money as possible so we can try to get a higher return on ad spend as possible, or just so that you can make more money for your business. So this is an example right here of one of our one-time offers. It says, wait, before you head to the confirmation page, want the fastest path to making money? We've already done all the hard work for you. And I pretty much say, hey, here's a total done for you system that you can get that includes proposals that we have, sales funnels, et cetera, for just, I think for this one, it's $197. Now, there's a lot of theory and framework around here on what you should price your one-time offers, your order bumps, your downsells. What I found that works very, very well almost always is keep the front-end products at a relatively low impulse buy amount, $7 to $35. And then everything after that should try to be as high as possible. Because even if I just get 10% of people to buy something at $197, where I'm adding $20, so if my original price was $7, I'm almost 3xing it on the first page only. So I always try to make it as expensive as possible on the extra order bumps. And even though it's a smaller percentage of people, there's enough of those people that it makes it way better than me having 10 different order bumps or one-time offer pages, all for a small amount of money. I'm not going to break down this entire one-time offer page, but the things you need to understand is that it is just as long as the original sales page. So it feels, once again, like they're paying $197, but it feels like I'm selling something for $2,000 to them. So I have so much sales copy and social proof and testimonials. In addition to that, you want to make sure you have what's known as a one-click upsell. So almost all sales funnel software has this now, but it means that the prospect just has to click the button one time. They don't have to enter their credit card information in there again, and it will automatically charge their card on file, and that skyrockets the conversion rates. And always make sure you have what I call a no thanks link, which is going to be below the main button for them to buy whatever that is on that page, where they say, hey, no thanks, I don't want this thing, because you don't want the people to leave your funnel. What a lot of people do is they'll have them go to this one-time offer page, and it's either buy this or exit out of this page. And you're going to lose out on a lot of money, because what about the people that don't want this thing but might want one of the other things you have in the funnel? Or if you have that onboarding call or implementation call at the end of your funnel, you might be losing a bunch of potential bookings because they're leaving the funnel early before they're able to book that call. And then finally, after we take them through a series of upsells and downsells, I've done as many as 10 pages from the checkout page to the confirmation page. Then you get the order confirmation page. And like I said before, this is going to be where you're going to let them know, hey, here's where to get this product or service that you purchase. And you're also going to ask them to do the thing that you want them to do, which is almost always to book some kind of implementation call or onboarding call to sell them on your high ticket products or services. So it says order confirmed. You'll receive an email in the next few minutes with login instructions. So within the first 1 second of them landing on that page, I've confirmed that they weren't scammed and that they're going to get an email with login instructions. And then I say, if you haven't yet, book your one-on-one YouTube implementation call now. And so this is going to be a one-on-one call with our appointment setters who are trained in YouTube. So I guess that's one key element I want to put on here. Just like I talked about your products, if someone has an experience with somebody on your company, aka an appointment setter, on this onboarding call and implementation call, and they feel like it was just fluff, the person didn't know what they're talking about, they were being disrespectful, they're just trying to hard sell them, whatever else it is, then you are going to have nobody book a sales call. You're going to have a lot of sales resistance, and you're going to have a lot of bad word of mouth going on in the marketplace. So I literally had to train all of my appointment setters on how to work with somebody who's just coming in, who needs to start a YouTube channel, needs to optimize their YouTube channel. I show them how they can create titles and thumbnails and packages, how they can adjust their YouTube channel to bring in more leads, calls, and sales, not just views. So I had to take my whole appointment setting team through that training process. So that way, if they get on the call, we can showcase value and make sure they get the thing that they were there for originally. And then if it makes sense, we can say, hey, I'm so glad you got so much value out of this. Do you want to hear a little bit more about maybe how we could help you do some of this stuff for you so you're not being bogged down in the weeds with all of it? And then if they say, yes, great. Now they've gotten value. They like what they've experienced with our company so far. So we're going to have a good sales call. And if they don't want to, or maybe they're just not even qualified, so our appointment setting team doesn't even offer it to them in the first place, well, now they leave better than when they first came to us, and we have some positive word of mouth going on in the marketplace. Here's an extra ninja little hack for those of you that are going to test a low ticket funnel. I have tested doing bonuses and not doing bonuses for the onboarding call or implementation call, and we found a 10% lift, meaning that our onboarding call booking rates went from 50% to 60% by adding a bonus if they showed up to the call. So not just if they booked it, but if they showed up to it. And another little hack there too is you can put the bonus that they get inside of the product. So let's say you're using some kind of course program or something like that. You can show it inside of there, but keep it locked and say this is only for those who show up to their onboarding call or implementation call. And so that 10% lift, if you're getting, let's say, 100 purchases every 2 days, that could be an additional 10 onboarding calls or implementation call bookings that you're getting that you wouldn't otherwise, just by offering them something valuable. And if you're even more amazing, talented, fantastic marketer, you can make that thing that they get another product that creates more of an awareness that they can't do this on their own. So for example, mine is the Elite YouTube Team Rolodex, where I show them where they can find top 1% YouTube thumbnail designers, editors, etc., etc. And I have a whole training on that inside of there. But the problem is when they get inside of there, they still don't even know, how do you manage a team? How do I connect this to my sales funnel, etc., etc. So it just showcases a wider gap of why they need to book a call and potentially work with us. And the final funnel is going to be a webinar funnel. Now, there's a few ways that you can do a webinar funnel. There are live webinars and there are auto webinars. Live webinars meaning that you do a live launch once a month, once every 2 weeks, depending on your audience size and your traffic, and you get everybody there for a specific date where you do it live. And then obviously auto webinar would be where you record it beforehand and people can opt in at any time, watch the full webinar and buy your stuff. There's pros and cons to each. typically what I will do is I will start a webinar live, and that way I can really refine the entire webinar script in the process. And then eventually I almost always turn it auto, because for me, once again, I want to build a business that serves me instead of me serving it. So even if I could eke out an additional 2 or 3%, which is a lot in a webinar conversion, I would rather not have to get on a webinar every 2 weeks and kind of dance like a monkey for a little bit. I'd rather just have it running in the background and just see, $2,000, $4,000 payments hit overnight while I'm sleeping. For the structure of the webinar funnel, you'll always have an opt-in page. This is gonna be very similar to the opt-in page that we talked about in the video sales letter funnel. You're collecting name, email, phone number. Then about, 15% all the way up to 50% of people can go from the opt-in page over to the webinar page. Now, why does the webinar opt-in have a higher potential opt-in rate than the video sales letter one? Well, because typically most video sales letters are direct, meaning they are saying something like, hey, opt in if you want to learn how you can work with me. And so those are going to be a lower conversion rate because not as many people want to work with you, where almost all webinars are indirect, where you're saying, hey, learn this cool and crazy new thing that you didn't know you needed before, but you definitely need. And so because they think they're going to learn this thing only and maybe not be sold to, or even if they do know they're going to be sold to, they're still interested enough, they're going to have more opt-ins for those people who are willing to learn what that thing is. Then, of course, you have the actual webinar page itself. Now, depending on if you're doing live or not live, you might send people to what's known as a webinar waiting room, which is typically where you're not going to show them the actual webinar itself. If you're doing it live, it's going to be a different page where you're going to say, hey, the webinar is in 1 day, 3 day, 5 days on this specific day. Make sure you mark your calendar, you do this other thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really going to cover that here because I think it would just be too much, but just know that some funnels, webinar funnels, if you're doing them live, instead of saying, hey, here's the webinar right away, you're going to say, hey, here's what you need to do to prepare yourself for the webinar that's going to be next week, essentially. And I have also tested when you're doing the webinar page itself, I've also tested like EverWebinar and all these different rooms and these fancy softwares where it like brings them all the way in. They can't exit out, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I have found just keeping it in the same funnel on whatever funnel software you're working to be the best. It's typically simpler, which is almost always the best thing to do. And people kind of at this point know what webinars are. They're not thinking that your, auto webinar is a live webinar. You're trying to trick them, blah, blah, blah. So we've almost always found for conversion rate at higher scale of auto webinars, don't worry about the fancy webinar softwares. Literally just use whatever funnel software you're using, embed a video, and then have a button hidden below it that only shows up whenever you reach the pitch of the webinar itself. Webinars typically run anywhere from 60 minutes if you're selling something, let's say, for $500 to $1,000, all the way up to 90 minutes if you're selling something for $1,000 to $3,500. I have typically found $3,000 to $3,500 to be the upper limit of what you could sell on a auto webinar, and maybe $3,500 to $4,000 to be the upper limit of what you could sell on a live webinar. And then of course you have another format, which is challenges, where it's like multiple days. And that's where you can get into the multiple 5 figures of a product. But of course you're spending, 6 or 8 hours with that person over 3 to 6 days. And so you're getting more exposure from them in order to ask for that larger amount. Of the people that land on the webinar page and watch it long enough to see the button pop up below and click on it, that's typically going to be, let's say, about 20% of people that will go from the webinar page to the actual checkout page. And that's just going to be a condensed version, very similar to what the low ticket checkout page looks like. Because remember, the low ticket checkout page was acting like we were selling something for $700 or a couple of $1,000s. And so here we really are selling something for $1,000 to $3,500. And so that's typically going to be about 20% of people, and it has a recap of everything there. And then on the checkout page, those that actually purchase, you're typically going to see like 30% to 50%. Once again, these numbers vary greatly. Don't come attack me in the comments. Of people that land on the checkout page that actually purchase your high ticket product or service, which gets you a pretty much end-to-end funnel conversion rate anywhere from 2% to 5%. And you're going to be on the higher end, typically even as high as 8%, 10% if you're doing it live to a very warm audience. And you'll be on the lower end, typically 2%, 3% if you're doing it cold and you're doing it on an auto webinar. So who should use a webinar funnel? Well, for me, it's very similar to the low ticket funnel because it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to get a webinar funnel converted correctly. Once again, it is almost as much as a low ticket funnel and definitely more than a video sales letter funnel. So I'm going to still stick around that 150K a month mark. Are there people that are able to do it at the very beginning? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But what I found is that if you're trying to make over $100,000 a month, to do it in just a webinar format, you need a lot of traffic for that. So you either need to have a really big personal brand or a lot of paid advertising that you're going to put behind it to get enough eyeballs to make it through this whole funnel to have 3% of the people pay you $2,000, or you need to have a high ticket back end offer. So maybe the webinar is just your front end offer. Let's say it's $2,000, but then you get a certain percentage of those people, let's say like 16% or 20% of the people that pay $2,000 will ascend into something that's like $8,000 or $10,000 on the back end, and you can actually reach that $100,000 month mark that way. But once again, that's way more advanced. Now you have to sell something that's good enough for $2,000 and sell your thing that's good enough for $8,000 or $10,000, and you have to have enough difference between both of them that they're valuable to each person and they're willing to pay that total amount of money without cannibalizing each other. And so you're getting into that product suite thing again, which makes things a little bit more confusing. So, almost always if you're below 150K a month, you don't get a lot of the benefits from the webinar, which is going to be your ability to once again liquidate ad spends and kind of get that little product-led growth thing where you're reaching a colder and colder market and they don't really know anything about you. And so they'd be more willing to spend, $1,000 to $3,000 first before they spend $8,000 or $10,000, right? But anything other than those two things, it doesn't really make sense for you to go to the webinar funnel in the very beginning. I would rather get the video sales letter funnel cranking and working, because ultimately the thing that you need to know about the video sales letter funnel compared to all these different funnels is even with a webinar funnel, even with a low ticket funnel, you should still have a video sales letter funnel running, because what the webinar funnel and the low ticket funnel gets you above anything else is leads. They get you a crazy amount of leads, because you're able to liquidate some of your ad costs. So if you typically have a $10 lead, but you're liquidating 50% of your ad spend, you really only have a $5 lead and you're spending 50 grand a month. You know what I mean? You're getting a lot of leads coming in here. But the problem is not all those leads are obviously going to buy your webinar low ticket products. And so this is where that email marketing system can come into place, where you can be sending them email blasts all the time. And you don't just want to say, hey, by the way, I know you came in, you wanted to buy this $7 thing or this $2,000 thing, but we have this $15,000 thing, book a call and let me tell you more about it. That's never going to be as efficient as saying like, hey, you were interested in this thing over here, but you might not know that we have this additional higher ticket product or service. Click here to watch a video explaining it, which is of course going to send them to your video sales letter, right? So it's like, if no matter what on any of these funnels, you're going to need to have the video sales letter funnel in order to have any of the other ones really work at scale, you really should start with the video sales letter one and only start opening up into the low ticket or the webinar ones once the video sales letter one isn't either working anymore, once your market becomes too saturated, or once you're spending so much money on ads on the video sales letter side that you're putting out hundreds of thousands of dollars every quarter and you're not getting that money back right away. Something like the low ticket of the webinar can help mitigate some of that risk by getting you back some of that ad spend faster. So let's walk through what a webinar funnel will look like. So this is our opt-in page here. Like I talked about in every other funnel, we use the pre-headline to call out our avatar. So this one says, only for coaches, course creators, and agencies. I say how we generate dozens of high-ticket clients a month from simple evergreen YouTube videos. If you've been paying attention at home, what is this? A direct headline or an indirect headline? You nailed it. It is an indirect headline, because remember, I'm trying to get as many leads to this as possible. I'm not going to say, hey, opt in here to see how you can buy my stuff. That doesn't work on a webinar funnel. Instead, I'm saying, hey, learn how we generate dozens of high-ticket clients a month from simple evergreen YouTube videos. And then I actually showcase, this is our tracking software, Hyros. I actually showcase that as a little bit of social proof on there, showing all these high-ticket sales, like $40,000 sales that we're getting from people from watching my YouTube videos. I said register and create a free YouTube video, and then I put some social proof below it. So very similar to our other opt-in page on the video sales letter. Very simple social proof, a little bit of credibility, calling out the avatar at the very top, and then having a headline painting their desires. This example being indirect, the video sales letter being direct. This is the actual webinar page itself. You can see incredibly simple, maybe even simpler than the video sales letter, because I just wanted them to click play on this video. The title here says how we made $650,000 plus last month using a self-sustaining funnel. That's because honestly, this is just a screenshot from a variation of a headline I was testing on the opt-in page too. So I would not have this headline attached to the opt-in page I just showed you. I guess I just accidentally grabbed the wrong screenshot because we're always testing headlines. But this is just a great example of making sure that you have good consistency from the opt-in page and the webinar page. And then the only thing you can do on this page is read this headline and click the play button right here. That is absolutely it. And that gets you a high enough play rate that enough people are going to watch the webinar to stay long enough to get to the pitch, which for us is at the 48-minute mark, at which point there's going to be a button right below it that pops up and says, hey, enroll in the YouTube Launchpad today. And so in order to see that button, they have to watch long enough of that webinar, which goes back to why I say webinars can be a little bit challenging, because if you're not able to hold enough people's attention from 0 minutes to 48 minutes to where you drop the pitch, well, then you're going to have a hard time getting enough people to buy your products or services, right? So you really have to be a master storyteller and really good at opening loops, keeping people hooked in longer and longer and longer until the point that you actually drop the price, where you put the button where you can take them to the next page. This is the next page, the checkout page. You can see it's almost a duplicate of our low ticket funnel. I have a little bit of a summary of everything they're getting on the bottom. I ask for their contact information here. We give two options for them to pay in full for a certain amount, or they can do payment plans. And then I actually have a financing button here and here that I mentioned in the webinar. I say, hey, you can get started for as low as $153 a month if you want to go with one of our financing companies. And that's a really great way to increase your conversion rates as well. And after they check out, the final page that they're going to see is the order confirmation page. And unlike the low ticket funnel, I wasn't going to send them through an upsell and downsell sequence because they just spent, $2,000 to $4,000 with me. And it starts to be, you kind of degrade the brand a little bit if you're like asking them to spend another $1,000 and $2,000. It just doesn't really convert that well. So we're just going to send them directly to a thank you page, at which point I ask them to review and sign the YouTube Launchpad proposal. Here's a great tip for you. If you're selling some kind of mid-ticket product, $2,000 to $4,000, to me, that is enough money to justify a proposal. You can use proposal software where you can just literally have people fill out name and their email, and it will auto-fill the entire proposal for them, so they can just click two buttons and sign it. Now you have a legally binding contract from them. And then the second thing that we do is we ask them to book their YouTube onboarding call, which once again, we use our mid-ticket products, $2,000 to $4,000 products, in order to ascend a certain percentage of people, anywhere from 10% to 25% of those people, into our high-ticket products and services. And so, the people that don't ascend, they get a great product and service for $2,000 to $4,000. They love it. Those that do ascend, they wanted to maybe test us out a little bit, make sure that we're legit. And then they're like, great, I want to work with you a little bit further. I want to work with Ravi a little bit further. And then they'll ascend into the back end, really making the entire funnel very, very profitable. If you like this video or have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you want my help building these kind of marketing systems inside of your business so you can consistently generate anywhere from 5 to 15 qualified sales calls a day for your business, make sure you go down below and book a call to speak with our team.